Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is episode 177, and my name is Charlie, and I'm here with Rosa today. Hi, Rosa.
Hey, Charlie.
Who did you interview this week?
So I interviewed Thomas. He brought up using a lockbox to quit and to titrate down, and I actually did that too. So I just wanted to talk about that. It's not perfect. It doesn't have no downsides, but I found it helpful. It can be helpful for titrating. It can be helpful for harm reduction in use. And people use it from everything from cookies to phones to cigarettes to drugs to alcohol. So it just seems like it's a resource there. So it seemed like something helpful to talk about. And you'll hear it in the interview. It's a lockbox and you can time it. So you can say you want it for an hour. I think it goes up to something like 10 days. There's a bunch of different kinds. We put some links in the show notes so you could look at them if you're interested. I think a lot of us have used the K-Safe. That's what I used. And the way I used it while I was using Kratom actually just for harm reduction. I would actually lock up my Kratom and then only open it 2 or 3 times a day just so I didn't have to rely on my own willpower. And then when I was quitting, the first time I quit, I used it and then I relapsed. And so I came back a second time and I used it a little bit different to titrate down. I actually got 2 of them because I noticed the problem was if I'd go a while without using and I opened up that box, I was in a different state of mind. So I got 2 of them and when I was titrating down, so I put out my doses and I measured them out and I kept as I was decreasing. So I'd put my next dose in one box and lock up the rest. And after I took a dose, then I could take out the next dose and put it in the next box. And so it helped me if I had dose and I had that Kratom in my system, I could think a little bit more clearly. And I didn't feel as fiendy when I opened up the second box. I also, when I first started the titrating, I made several small doses. So individual doses before I was in that state of titrating down where I'd feel a little bit more, where I was struggling, right? Where I had a lot of Kratom in my system. I'm feeling good and I could make these doses. Then I had them in that big container. And yeah, I'd open up that little one just for that dose. So that's one way. Those are some ideas of how to use it. In some ways, people have used it before. You were mentioning like you got one for your phone, and
yes, it's interesting. We want this many episodes before this particular tactic or technique came up with the guest. But yes, about 2 years ago, I bought one to try to deal with a phone addiction, and I bought it on Amazon, and it was one of those clear ones, probably the same brand that you talked about. And I never did put it to use. The first issue was I was going to use it at first to not use my phone overnight. So instead of picking it up all through the night and interrupting my sleep, at least have an 8-10 hour period where I wouldn't use it at all. But what happens if there's an emergency? What happens if there was a 911 call? So I never really implemented it. I have an old iPod that I was going to try to transition to my scrolling addiction to try to only do it on this like iPod kind of thing. And I just never got it back fired up. So the thing is sitting in a box, a moving box, unused. I'm prone to do that. I also once bought a ukulele once to teach myself how to like de-stress by playing some acoustic tunes. And I got a little bit farther with that, but I've never had a musical bone in my body. But I do think for those who are disciplined and if you are a planner, I think it could be a good tool. What do you think some of the things to be aware of, especially with quitting Kratom, that might be challenges?
Yeah, a couple of things to be aware of. First of all, just to piggyback on what you were saying, one idea I think with this, I was hesitant to use it too with Kratom. At first, I got it and didn't use it for a long time. And a good strategy for that is just start small. I would just start, like I'd throw it in for 30 minutes just to have that experience of, I don't have to use my willpower right now. And what is this like to lock it in? So I think at first there's something about doing it that feels weird. And I should do this with my phone now. I still have the box. But I haven't used it. But yeah, doing really short periods of time just to get used to it. So that's just one strategy of how to use it. The downsizes are, I've talked to a lot of people who have broken it. You can break into it and you feel really bad about yourself after. It is still a barrier. It can be hard when people do, you can break them. It's hard to break and then you have to buy a new one. But it's a barrier. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
barriers are just helpful. And I think also it's Kratom. So you can go down the street and buy some. Most people have pretty easy access to Kratom.
Oh, yeah.
For me, all barriers were really helpful. And I am a planner. I'm a planning type of person. So for me, it felt also, I'm a little cheap. So I bought I brought my Kratom in bulk and online. And I think it just depends. It's not for everyone, but I think sometimes if you're really struggling, I believe in harm reduction. And I think making it easier to do less, or obviously when people are titrating, having some help with that titration. It's not for everyone, but in those times it can be helpful. But if you're doing extracts and you're type just to go to the gas station right away, and it's not for everybody.
I guess Natalie, one of our other co-hosts, was just talking to somebody that is using it to taper.
It's great for tapering.
And having the doses planned out. And one way of tapering is not just the lowering your amount, but you could also have longer periods of time between each dose.
Right.
Is another way of reducing. I'm one of those people that threw away my Kratom, like flushed it, like significant amount of money. And then I went out and used again.
Yeah.
And sometimes that I would probably put smashing up your lockbox, part of that learning curve.
It gives you another feeling. Oh, I do have to say, by the way, the other thing that I did this last time that I quit, and now I have over a year, and I think this titration, it was just having those 2 boxes were really helpful. Once I was done, I still had all my Kratom locked in a box, and I walked it over to my neighbor, she's in recovery. I walked it over to my neighbor. I gave her the whole box. Before it unlocked, I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. I've never been able to flush drugs or throw them away, or there's something, and maybe it's that cheapness in me. I feel like I can't do it myself. So I gave it to my neighbor. I'm like, you deal with it. I can't handle it. And she knew I was going to do that, but I didn't even take the lockbox back. So I still had the one extra though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm one of those Kratom critters. I'm one of those, when I was going to quit, I had to have it all out of the house.
Yeah.
I couldn't have any dosages, no matter how much amount. Because a little bit like I think you tied on, like once I had a little bit of Kratom in my system, then I didn't have any discipline and any judgment, and I got to the point where I would like just take more and okay, I'll quit tomorrow. The best I could do was to not start early in the morning. It would be a victory if I could make it to noon or later. But yeah,
it's another great way to use the lockbox too, because I got to the point where I woke up in withdrawal. I'd wake up just like ready for my Kratom dose, and I'd have it. That's the same. It'd be locked up for a little bit. I think that they say that with addiction, that first thing in the morning, first thing at night, those are last thing at your first and last, right? Those are the hardest. And so having even 5 minutes waiting creates a new neural pathway for us to quit instead of go into that addiction. So just even a little time of resistance is starting a new way of thinking.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to hearing your first interview, and thanks for joining our team once again. And we're getting towards the end of the new year, so I hope everybody's getting ready for the holidays and have a good one. Thanks a lot, Rosa.
Thank you. Welcome. This is Rosa, and today we're talking to Thomas. So how do you usually introduce yourself when meeting someone new?
I'm Minnesota born and raised, and I live out in outside of Seattle now. I used to be a rock climber for 30 years. That pretty much defined who I was, but I quit back in 2020. So now I guess I'm looking for my new identity. I switched to sailing, so that's pretty much
From rock climbing to sailing.
Yeah.
How come the change?
I was climbing over in Turkey and right before the pandemic started, and I've been a climber for 30 years, and I knew I needed shoulder surgery. when I was on that trip. And when I came back, it was such a great trip. I was like, I still want to have the surgery. I think maybe I've just had a good run and now I can just pivot.
You had the choice of like surgery or
Yeah.
changing to something new.
Yeah. So I stopped then. There was a lot of other stuff going on, obviously, and I haven't really regretted it. It's one of those things that, like I wouldn't have done it willfully, but I was somewhat forced to do it. And now I'm like, yeah, it was a really good move at this point in my life. Yeah. There's a lot of diminishing returns when you're climbing at a high, like fairly competitively, and I'm older and my body doesn't recover. And so like the benefit that you derive from it is often hitched to how well you can perform. Yeah. So I was not really seeing getting out of it what I used to, but I've been climbing for so long that it just was my default mode.
I could totally get that because I dance and I dance salsa at that, and it's something you age out of. And I'm
Yeah.
feeling that like at some point, and I'm feeling like that push up against it. So it's nice to hear that it wasn't so devastating for you. You found other things that you like, and you're glad that you had that time with something that you loved, but
Yeah.
you were able to
I
move on.
eventually did get the surgery
Oh,
because
you
after
did
about
anyway.
yeah, I did it anyway. I went back and I was like, I declined the surgery back in 2020, but I can't sleep anymore. The pain, it's like, it keeps me up at night. It hurts so bad. And I was like, yeah, it's time to do the surgery. And then my doctor, I was holding on my left shoulder as I was talking, as indicating where the pain was. And my doctor said, you do remember it was your right shoulder. And I was just like, what? So I literally had like somehow they both were really, he said, when they did the MRI, he said, you've got a lot of derangement in there. And it was like, you're not the first person to tell me that. But yeah, so I did my left shoulder and my right shoulder still needs it, but we're just going to see how it goes.
Did the surgery work for the left shoulder?
The surgery was amazing. Yeah. In fact, it took 9 months to recover from that. Yeah, pretty much, a long recovery. I'm trying to remember if I was on Kratom during that period. It might have been, oh man, when wasn't I on Kratom?
Let's go back, but let's just start with what is your Kratom quit date? We'll start from there.
So my Kratom quit date, I don't know. I don't have it. I'm using Nomo. I haven't looked at it. You'd think I would have looked at it today, but I think I'm about 120 or 130 days in, something like that on this quit. And this quit to me is more significant. I think I probably have 3, if not 4 significant quits over the last close to 10 years. And this one really means more to me than any of the previous ones. I feel, and I think I've told this to people, I feel like if I ever went back to Kratom, that I would be in such a state that I don't get suicidal ideations, but in my mind, if I ever turn back to Kratom, I must really hate myself. So that would be indication that I would be in danger of, I can't, I just never want, I can't imagine ever going back. But these things are strange.
Yeah.
I fell back into that hole more times than 3 or 4 other times, but I didn't know very much about what I was dealing with because I was introduced to it back in 2014. I think I looked through some emails. There was, and even today, I don't know anybody who does Kratom. Like maybe 1 or 2 people, but they're not close friends or anything like that. It's not social. I never was like, hey, let's go home and hang out and do some Kratom together. It just, you don't. It's not.
So how were you introduced to it? How did you learn?
So an ex-girlfriend of mine brought it home from work. Like one of her customers she didn't really know much about it. She just said, I think maybe I was probably having back pain or something. And he told her that he takes it for pain or whatever. And so that's how I got introduced to it. And I've always been an experimentalist as far as just any chemicals or psychedelics or anything goes. And I've never really had too much of an addiction issue with that. And I've had access to bottles of I take it. If I have it, I've been an opportunist. But even if I got pretty wrapped around the axle on, say, like having a pretty good supply, like after a surgery or something like that, they'll prescribe you here's 120 Oxycontin for, you really literally only need those things for 3 days and they will give you 3 months supply. Even when I would go through those and enjoy it or whatever, I didn't seek it out afterwards. I never experienced a terrible amount of withdrawal from any kind of like pills at all. I didn't really know what the extent of withdrawal was like until I met Kratom.
So no other history with any other addictions or?
I'm not a binge drinker. It's interesting because I've always struggled with, I don't like things that are habitual, like daily. And even though like maybe I'd drink every day as I'm a contractor, at 5 o'clock, I'd have a beer or two or a bottle of wine. Often that would become the whole bottle of wine. And by modern standards, that probably is binge drinking. But I've never been, I don't wake up in the morning. I'm not that kind of drinker, right? Like I'm evening drinker. But I never liked that. It didn't sit well with me. And when I first got introduced to Kratom, I was under the impression that it wasn't a potentiator for alcohol. Like you take a Vicodin or something like that and you have a glass of wine, it's woohoo, 10x.
Right,
But Kratom, in my mind, I got it in my mind that they weren't potentiators for each other. And so I swapped Kratom for alcohol. And then it quickly became much more my choice. Like it seemed to me, at least, there was a lot more benefit from Kratom than alcohol ever gave. I like the fact that it was like one and done. These are the things that got me hooked on it. Everything that it offers you or you think it's giving you in the beginning, it slowly, like, it takes it away and then it keeps taking and taking, of course, in my experience. But I began taking it as a end of the day boost. I like the stimulant properties. And then later on, I would triple the dose of whatever was giving me the stimulant to just lock me down and knock me out, basically. Yeah. And that's what I did.
So you started out using it for the stimulant effects. And then as you went on, you noticed that if you took a lot of it, you could get more of that.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I knew that it had both of those properties. I did a little my research on the internet or whatnot, and I knew it could do both. So I really went in on both of those right from the get-go. But I recognized that if at 5 o'clock I did the scoop or whatever, it would give me like a little bit of a cruising altitude. I didn't feel like my cognition was very good, but I'd just do like mindless flow tasks to set myself up for the next day. And then 7 or 8 o'clock, I was doing like 3 heaping tablespoons of the driest. And my first time of deciding, wow, maybe I shouldn't be taking this all day, every day or whatever. It was motivated not for any other real reason. It wasn't wrecking my life or anything. It was just like, I don't know what this is doing to my liver. Like it was mostly motivated by just maybe I shouldn't be consuming Mars dirt at this quantity as much as I am. And then that's when I discovered I just thought, oh, I'll just stop taking it. And that wasn't happening.
So you started around like 2014. And then at some point you're like, okay, I'm just taking like a ton of this powder. Could this be bad for my liver? And how long, what kind of time frame was that? Like when did you start thinking about that?
It immediately replaced my daily like drink at the end of the day. So it immediately became my daily thing. And that went on for 2 years. So it was about 2 years. I was about 2 years in when I decided that I needed to think about quitting, or just not like, I wasn't even thinking that. I wasn't even thinking I need to quit. I was just, you know what I mean?
Started wondering,
it didn't occur to me that it was an addiction. Like it was, that's how I just didn't even think about it. I just thought it was like tea. That's pretty silly now when I even articulate it out.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that. I think there's a lot of people, and especially earlier, now we're starting to hear a little bit more about Kratom being a problem, but it's still not. I don't think you're alone in that. So did you decide to quit? Did you decide to cut down? What happened after a couple of years? Did you just think about it? What happened after that?
Well, I tried, and I experienced all the classic flu-like and just joint pain, couldn't sleep, all those things. And
were you trying to do it just cold turkey?
Yeah. I just tried to go cold turkey. And then that wasn't working. Then that wasn't working. So I tried to titrate down. And I'm a pretty disciplined in some ways, but I'd fail. At very first, I'd be like, I'd throw it in the garbage. And then 5 o'clock, I'd be down in the garbage digging out like pockets of dry powder or capsules or what have you. And that was pretty reliable. I could do, because my willpower is really strong in the morning. Like because I've heard a lot on your podcast that people would take it in the morning. It never even occurred to me to do that. And I'm so grateful for the fact that for me, it's always the evening. So I did have this, I had hours of the day where I felt strong against it. And then that falls apart completely when your cravings begin. But so I tried that for a while. Eventually, and I succeeded. And then I fell back. I just would fall back into it after a short period of time because I switched back to alcohol and I'd be like, oh, maybe I don't want to do alcohol every day. So for a while I went back and forth. And then eventually that went on for a while. My timeline's not great, but that went on for a while. Eventually it got to the point where I just knew I just didn't feel like I could get this under wraps. And I asked my doctor, and this was while I was still pretty ignorant about the extent of what I was dealing with. And I went to my doctor. I said, yeah, I don't know if you've heard about this stuff, but I'm having the hardest time like stopping using it. And he prescribed me Suboxone, which I'd never heard of.
He must have had heard of Kratom.
He had not.
Oh, wow.
I love my doctor, but he is very clean as a whistle. He and I have not had the same experience in life.
Oh.
But anyway, so he prescribed me Suboxone, and he said, take one of these at 5 and one at 9. And I went home, I took one, and I woke up on the kitchen floor in a pile of vomit. And I passed out again. That night, I would wake up and I would be aware that I was like completely sideways, and I passed. It was pretty awful, and I was a little upset. So I called back in the morning. I was like, I don't know what that was all about, but I could have died yesterday. And so then I did some research on that, and this is around the time that I discovered this. One of the things that prompted me to contact you guys is that I have this quit method that I think is very helpful, and everybody's different, and this may work for some people, but I used one of those boxes that locks. I did this with the Suboxone. I cut the Suboxone into 15 little slivers, and I would lock it into the box that would open at 8 o'clock at night. And I'd open the box, I'd take a sliver out, and I'd take that, and I'd lock that back down. And then I managed to wean myself off the Suboxone doing that over about 20 days. And that alleviated a lot of the Kratom withdrawal symptoms, and it worked. And then eventually I fell back into Kratom again. And then around this time, the extracts and the 7.0s were on the market. And now I think they even have a blunt now. Did you know this?
Wow. No.
Yeah.
No, I had not heard about that.
It's so upsetting, right?
That. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awful, right? So now you can smoke it.
For listeners, and just mention the lockbox that Thomas is talking about. It's pretty common. You can get on Amazon or anywhere, and you can put a timer on it. And so just wanted to, those you can get those most places.
Yeah, I forget what it's even called, but it has a little timer and it doesn't open. It's plastic. You can smash it, but you feel like it's
barriers.
Like
some barriers can be really helpful, especially in trading.
Yeah, but my method. So what I eventually did the very last time was that I had 2 boxes because I'd have one box that was full of my powder supply, and then I would have the second one that I would put my daily dose in. So these would open in the morning when my willpower was at its strongest.
After that you did the Suboxone for a while, and then you got completely off Kratom for a while, but then you eventually went back to Kratom.
Exactly. And mostly because every time I would go off Kratom, I would drink, right? I would just replace one for the other. And that's not what when I quit Kratom this last time, I also quit alcohol. So I haven't had a drink in over 3 months, and I haven't had Kratom.
Right.
Yeah, I feel great. I honestly, I don't think I'm a pretty anxious, kind of wound up person, and I don't think I've felt this collected and just Yeah, I just feel good. It just feels good to be like regulated rather than just being like bouncing off the walls all the time, depending on what it is. So basically, I think about it as outsourcing your willpower to this box when your willpower is at its strongest. What I essentially did was it was a hedge against me having like weak willpower in the evening. So like the supply, I would open in the morning and I would take my titrated dose and I would put it in the other box. And that way at 8 o'clock, when my dose box opens up, I'm not like, "Oh, I wouldn't mind a little more," because that's what I found myself doing. So I would be like, it's been a hard day or whatever. I just justify it. Your addiction, justify. Your addiction is a voice that lies to you, or it lies to you in your own voice. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Your addiction lies to you in your own voice. And so that way I wouldn't have access to it. I would just take my dose and I'd forget about it. And then the supply dose wouldn't open again until tomorrow morning. And I use that method. I usually titrate over about 2 weeks and I don't notice any withdrawal symptoms. But I don't think it works. If that's why I think Kratom is really, from what I keep hearing over and over again, is Kratom is super hard to wean off of
Yeah.
because it's everywhere. It's just, and for whatever reason, I feel like it's psychological. Like there's something more weirdly creepy about it than any other thing I've ever taken. It's like really gets into your brain and it
Feels like that we all have everybody has such different experiences, but this seems like the thing that we all say. There's something so insidious and
yes. Yeah.
I wonder what we'll find out about it someday.
Yeah, it's probably just because it's such a cocktail of alkaloids that we don't quite know all the different ways that it affects our brain chemistry. But yeah, so that was my way of weaning and getting off of it this very last time. And then I also just like also quitting alcohol. I think that's huge for me because it's facing the fact that I'm an addict. At the bottom of it, it's all the same. I think addiction is addiction, right? Like we're self-medicating or not dealing with some like past trauma or whatever it happens to be. But if you're just switching from one thing to the other, eventually, for me, at least in my experience, that other thing is going to eventually pop back up and you're going to be like, oh, that's better than what I'm on now. Yeah. There's just so many ways to tell that story to yourself that, yeah.
So how have you done it? You take away those two like coping strategies, alcohol, Kratom, both at the same time? Is this the first time that you've quit both of them at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah. This is the first time I've really just been totally clean. And I don't smoke pot. And yeah. Yeah. I don't do it. I don't have anything like, okay, I take mushrooms every once in a while, like twice a year, maybe. So like a very small amount for a show. But that's it. So I guess I'm like California sober light camp.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
And you mentioned you've been listening to the podcast, you go to meetings. What is it? What is this what does recovery look like to you?
Actually, let me just say this because I don't want to, I've given a lot of relevance to the box, but honestly, the thing that made the most difference of all was finally not feeling like I was living in a vacuum. So I didn't discover a community or even hear about someone else's experience until this last year. And I was really at the end. I was pretty deep with the Kratom. Like I was doing 3 heaping tablespoons as a dose. I don't know what that is, but it feels like a lot. And then the extracts, I didn't get I would take the extracts, but I recognized how expensive that was. And I just didn't want to. Oh, I did do some extracts, but yeah, I never got to the point where I had to go out and spend $60 or $80 a day on extracts.
So the extracts not as much daily. The powder was daily. The extracts were just here and there.
The powder was my go-to. But yeah, no, to this last one, I probably did more extracts than I ever had. And I was really at the end of my rope on it. I felt so hopeless and helpless against it. And then a friend of mine mentioned that she listened to Recovery Elevator, which is parallel, it's for alcohol. And then while I was searching for that, I read some random, just maybe like a short story about someone's experience. And it moved me it was so amazing to hear someone also get emotional. But it was so amazing to hear someone else's experience. It just blew my mind. And so then from that, I began to look for, then I found this podcast. And then immediately I was just like, okay, I'm home. I could do this. And then I phoned into an NA meeting, a local one in Seattle, where I just listened. I sat and listened, and it was like, I've only done that one other time, but just knowing these things are out there, it's just so important. I really think, especially with Kratom, because you really, like we talked about, it's such an antisocial experience. I don't know anyone whose experience has been that contrary to that. It feels mostly like an or even if you, like, for me, like in the last few years, if I was at a family event or if I was doing anything, I was like definitely on Kratom. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew, but it was definitely my cope. So it's not like
Not
alcohol
like
where
we're taking shots of Kratom together or
yeah, woohoo, party, it's happy birthday or whatever. No, it's definitely go out to the car, find the bathroom or whatever. And yeah,
yeah.
it's just so, yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah, and I see your emotion when talking about hearing other people's story. And
yeah,
there is really something about there's this loneliness and almost what's happening to me with this kind of something you can get at a gas station that I feel so
right.
out of control. Yeah. And when
I
you
hear
hear
that
like,
over
oh
and over
wait, I'm
again. It's
not
just like,
alone in this.
yeah.
And so do you have cravings anymore? Or what's your experience like right now?
Cravings for Kratom. I haven't had any cravings for Kratom. In the first 2 months, I guess they talk about the pink cloud phase. I definitely
Mhm.
felt that. In the last couple weeks, I've been a little bit less. I've been like grasping around for something does feel missing, but it's not craving Kratom. It's just maybe like the elation of getting my life back. That's really strong. I feel like that is what I experienced was like being having a conscious experience without having this addiction as part of it. That feels so good and new and novel, but like we're novelty seeking creatures. And so that novelty does wear off and then the seasons change and it's like it's the dreary season. So I just think of like my mental state right now as being somewhat just like seasonally affected. But I just think about the things that I want to do in the future and when I have any sense of a craving, I just play the tape forward and I know exactly where it ends up. You just know where, even if you're telling yourself a story about, oh, I could deserve to feel blissed out right now or whatever, play the tape forward. 6 months from now,
Yeah,
that's going to be your daily and you're going to be
as
like,
long as
just
that's
as,
gonna last. And
yep, that
yeah.
could go on for years or whatever. Who knows? And given, like for me, like I just feel like I will not be a person that I care about if that happens. Like I want to be someone, I want to treat myself like someone I care about.
So if you could take any dream trip with no budget limit, where would you go?
Oh, I think I would. Like I was saying, I bought an old sailboat back in October that I've been restoring. I would go sailing around the world. To make a short answer, I would just sail my boat out to sea and see where it takes me. Probably back to the Mediterranean.
So sailing's your new mountain climbing. And how much time do you
Yes.
spend doing that?
This last summer, I lived on the boat while I was restoring it, and I just moved off of it because it's not the time of year, but I tried to get out as often as possible, a couple evenings a week. We have a really reliable wind that comes up but I didn't know anything about sailing back in October, and
Oh, wow.
it's like a 42-foot boat, and yeah, I managed to take it out by myself a couple of times. It's exciting. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely filled the rock climbing shaped hole that I had in my life. And now that I'm fully recovered from my shoulder surgery, I've been craving like the dynamism of climbing. So I've been looking for something new to just do that's very physical. And I bought a Lyra, which is like that big steel ring that it's like circus performers do. So
And what do you do with it? I'm not.
I haven't quite unlocked what you do with it. You like do pull-ups and you do fancy poses and stuff. It's
Okay.
basically, it's an aerial art.
Okay.
Those like silks or even like pole dancing. It's in
I'm
that
oh,
genre of
uh-huh.
physical activity. So that's my answer to what I'm missing from the dynamic motion and dance-like qualities of rock climbing.
And there's something about I feel like there's something about quitting kratom too, and just addictions in general. That there's something about replacing it with like physical movement and then something you love as well, like some sort of hobby. So I think
Definitely.
sometimes we're really looking for, so it's hard when you got work and responsibility and life and everyday life, the drudgery of it all. It's
Yeah.
hard to find that time, but it feels so important sometimes to have something else in life. That's something that
Yeah.
I really try to put a priority. That's part of my recovery for me.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. And like now, I guess in to reflect that on my experience, I didn't ever really stop my physical activities. I've always been very active and physical. But for me, the kratom, what I need to what's hardest for me is that evening time. It's that end of day switching down, gear trying to like downshift and calm myself.
There's some kind of like mindfulness about it. I remember I went to a mindfulness retreat and they were talking about there's a research project that they did. I don't remember all the details of it, but the people, they could either sit there quietly and not do anything, or they could give themselves this kind of like painful electronic shock. And like people sat there for 3 minutes, and then 99% of the people would give themselves an electronic shot or this electric shot that was painful. And anyway, the research was showing that it's not just feeling good. Sometimes we just can't stand just sitting with ourselves. That will almost cause ourselves pain besides just sitting with what is in life and what's come to life. And I always remember that story. It's like, you're right, sobriety's enough. Here I am. Just stop and experience that reading of a book or stretch. What's that like? And I think especially us that are addicts, we're used to going, how can I feel anything, even if it's painful? So much stimulation. It can feel uncomfortable without it. So what's one piece of advice you'd offer to someone who's thinking about quitting kratom?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you're not alone. And that if this is the first time you're hearing this or 100 or whatever, but that there's a community out there. I think in my experience of kratom, I suffered alone, and I hear this over and over again with so many people. And there's a sad side to it that's changing, but that's because there's more people doing kratom. So there's a little bit of a double side to that. But it is such an antisocial drug from my perspective, and it seems like I hear that over and over again. So it is easy for people who are suffering to not realize that there are other people out there like them having the exact same experience. And you just have to find that community. And it is amazing. It was amazing for me when I first discovered that there were other people also addicted to this crazy thing. And that was pivotal, and that really set me on a path where I feel like I was empowered enough and found my strength to face this. So you just find a community, attend a meeting. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a kratom meeting I went to an NA meeting online, but mostly for me, it was just the podcasts, this one in particular, and Recovery Elevator, which is for alcohol, but still really good just to hear other people's stories. And then I read other people's accounts. You can find things online.
I remember when I first quit, I just played the podcast. And I think it speaks to what you were talking about, and just not feeling alone and having community. And yeah. Is there anything we didn't ask that you'd like to share, or something on your heart or mind that you want listeners to hear?
The thing to do, like the cravings are going to happen, and I still get them. I drive past the same place where I bought my kratom every single day, twice a day. And that may not be a trigger for me. I mean, but the triggers happen. And what you got to do is you just got to play the tape forward. You can even walk in there in your mind and go through those steps that you know so well. Like you've done it hundreds or thousands of times. You go in the door, just play it forward and say, you can easily visualize walking in there, finding your product, buying your product, taking it home, doing whatever it is. But then play it forward, play it the next day. 6 months later, you're going to be doing that same thing again. You're going to be right back where you started. And you just gotta play the tape forward and know that's where it's gonna end up. No matter what your brain is telling you in that moment, because your addiction is gonna lie to you in your own voice. And you're gonna believe it's the easiest lie to believe.
That play the tape forward too is another great advice. I like that. It takes the kind of the mystic, like romanticizing of it out. If you're just pushing it away and, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. It can say in the back of your mind is, ooh, but it'd be so good. It feels much better. But if you lean into it, it's scary at first because I think we don't want to think about it. You're trying to push that away. But yeah, if you go, just let it go. If you let it go all the way through. But yeah, that's why I'm not doing this. It's not just, if it was just that first piece of relief but it's not, it's all of it.
The other thing I would encourage people to look into, because it helped me so much. And I know that we all have a very nuanced engagement relationship with our addiction. But for me, the Lockbox really helped me a lot because I was not a morning user, but I'm sure it could be tweaked somehow. But my willpower, to the extent that is even a thing, was strongest in the morning. And so I was able to outsource my willpower to this little device. And obviously, you can break it. It's plastic, whatever. But I did that once and I just felt like such a jackass. And so it was enough to help me. But if anybody is ever interested, I'm sure you guys could put me in contact. I'd be happy to give some strategies and techniques for how I made that work. Just outsource your willpower to this little device and craft your titration, which I think what I hear over and over again, if I could add this one last thing, is that it's very difficult to wean off of Kratom. And I can confirm. And I think it's hard. It's hard for all those reasons that everybody knows, because it's so apparent. It's everywhere. You don't have to go into some back alley to get it. All of those reasons. But weaning really is easier on your body if you don't have to experience those things. So for me, I was not able to wean until I used the box techniques. And then they worked just perfectly for me. And that's just my story. But if that could help anyone else, I really appreciated this. It was a lot of fun. I've never been on a podcast, and so I'll be interested to hear how it all shakes out.
All right, Thomas. Thanks so much. Been so great speaking with you today.
Thank you so much, Rosa.